Very good evening and warm welcome to Power News, your window to the power sector. I'm Juhi Rajput. First of all, let me bring you the quick updates. The centre has postponed the plan to auction 5 captive coal blocks as it decided to seek the views of coal-bearing states on the proposal. The states were requested to respond latest by February 10th. While the fresh schedule for auction is yet to be firmed up, sources say sections within the government are not comfortable with auctioning the blocks in a hurry and landing up in fresh controversies. An interministerial group tasked with suggesting punitive measures for holders idling their captive coal blocks is learned to have recommended cancellation of 30 mines, making it the single biggest deallocation so far. Apart from several major firms like Jindal Steel and Power, SR Power and Tata Group, and Reliance Infrastructure, many smaller companies are now understood to be included in the list. According to a Coal Ministry source, the list will be sent to Coal Minister Shri Prakash Jaiswal soon for his approval, following which letters informing cancellation will be sent to the block holders. In what may be a big setback to 16,000 megawatt of existing and upcoming gas-based power projects that originally were to rely on Reliance Industries KG-D6 gas, but now need to use imported RLNG, the Power Ministry has decided against recommending any central subsidy for these projects. Due to the increase in gas price, tariff from these plants is expected to shoot up to over Rs 6 to 7 per unit, making scheduling of this expensive power difficult. With traditional power sector hamstrung by fuel shortage and climate change getting top billing at World Economic Forum Summit in Davos, the government has lined up a Rs 5,000 crore push to promote green energy capacity. The Ministry of New and Renewable Energy proposes to raise the authorized share capital of IREDA from Rs 1,000 crore at present to Rs 6,000 crore through this infusion. The proposal envisages the government pumping in Rs 2,500 crore, while the remaining funds are to be raised through right issue and initial public offering of IREDA shares. Wean farmers from archaic power lines and expensive diesel fuel to run their water pumps with solar energy. The government is looking to swap 26 million groundwater pumps for more efficient irrigation models powered by the sun. If successful, crop production could rise in India, where farms suffer from blackouts and volatile fuel costs. It would also save about $6 billion a year in power and diesel subsidies. Companies targeting the market include BlackRock Inc., bagged Sun Edison Inc., Asia's top irrigation equipment maker, Jan Irrigation Systems Limited, and Claro Energy. India has 75 million households without access to electricity, and per capita consumption in rural households was only 8 units per month as compared to 24 units in urban households, according to an expert report submitted to Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. The reason for such low level of consumption is not low demand, but poor access to energy. In spite of a number of programs and schemes for rural electrification, India has one of the lowest levels of access to modern energy. The report emphasized need to prepare a national renewable energy policy and establishment of National Energy Access Mission aimed at providing modern and clean energy to all in sufficient quantity at affordable prices. Significantly, even after Supreme Court directive not to grant clearance for hydroelectric project in the state until further orders, the state government of Uttarakhand is seeking forest clearance for hydropower projects in the state. Supreme Court on August 13 directed the Union Ministry of Environment and Forest and the state government not to grant clearance for hydroelectric projects in the state until further orders. After the June 2013 floods and widespread destruction, the Uttarakhand government was widely criticized for illegal constructions and increasing hydropower projects across its riverbeds. However, the state has sought permission from the centre to increase its mandate for clearing an additional 50 hydro projects and also removal of eco-sensitive zones in the region.
Uttarakhand government has not even developed 10% of the total capacity which would have been developed even as on date. Their progress in development of hydro projects is very poor. Since formation of Uttarakhand government, only one project, Maneri Valley 2, which was languishing since last 30 years, was completed during my tenure as chairman of the Uttarakhand Jal Vidyut Nigam and as advisor government of Uttarakhand. And I can tell you that no disaster has been caused because of development of hydro projects in that area. Rather, it strengthens the situation. Even development of Tehri hydroelectric project could save Hardwar and Rishikesh town on account of disaster. Otherwise, Hardwar and Rishikesh would not have been there on the map if the dam of Tehri would not have saved that area.
According to laws, the state government can clear hydropower projects up to 2 megawatt on its own, beyond which it will need the centre's consent. The state government has asked the ministry to increase the mandate for clearance up to 25 megawatt. This would lead to clearance of at least 50 more hydro projects.
A state government should clear up to 25 megawatt, but for that they don't have any infrastructure. They want to get all the powers, but without having any technical expertise at their level. It will certainly be a disaster for the state, because they first develop their infrastructure. They should give respect to the technical people in the state. They should try to understand the technicalities of the hydro project. Hydro project is not like road and bridges. They do not understand the hydro projects. Even when I was the chairman, I had questioned them regarding 56 hydro projects which they have allotted without concurrence of Uttarakhand Jal Vidyut Nigam, which was mandatory as per the order of the Uttarakhand government. Under such situation, if you allow power to the state government without developing their infrastructure, it is not feasible at all. It will not be in the interest of the country. The state government should be asked to strengthen their manpower first, then there is no harm in it.
Uttarakhand has 98 operating hydropower projects with combined capacity close to 3,600 megawatt. Of this, about 1,800 megawatt is in central sector and 503 megawatt in private sector. The Uttarakhand government plans to have a total of 336 hydropower projects with total capacity of 27,189 megawatt. The largest number, around 122, of such projects are in the Alaknanda basin, and the largest capacity is proposed to be in the Sharda basin at 12,450 megawatt. However, sources say that the state wants caps for clearances to be increased to 25 megawatt in Bhagirathi basin. On December 18, 2012, the centre had declared an area of 4,179.5 square kilometres covering the entire watershed around a 100-kilometre stretch of the Bhagirathi from Gomukh to Uttarkashi, an eco-sensitive zone under the Environment Protection Act 1986. Here we'll take a short break, but there is a lot more on the other side. Stay tuned.
Indian Energy Exchange, India's premier power trading platform.
From manufacturing of energy cables to EHV installations to renewable energy solutions to retail energy products, our technology energizes lives. Ravin, energizing lives.
करेगा?
पढ़ूंगा। रात को बंद तो नहीं होगा?
2 दिन तक पढ़ पाएगा।
L&T Diva Solar Lantern with built-in mobile charger. चले कई रात बस एक चार्ज पर।
Power Grid Corporation of India, the central transmission utility, world-class integrated global transmission company with dominant leadership in emerging power market, ensuring reliability, safety and economy. Power Grid, building a smarter grid.
Welcome back. India is moving towards implementing a radical plan to separate the so-called carriage and content operations of existing power distribution companies, with the draft cabinet note on the matter expected to be circulated within the next 3 weeks. Once implemented, the plan may make it possible for people and companies in India to buy electricity from a power company of their choice, resulting in lower tariffs. Carriage refers to the distribution aspect and content to power itself. Implementation of the plan would require changes in the Electricity Act of 2003. Amid various problems faced by the sector, the Power Ministry is discussing possible amendments to the Electricity Act that came into existence in 2003 with various stakeholders.
Definitely, it has brought a lot of encouragement into the sector by way of delicensing generation and then reforming the distribution sector. But what is required at this point of time is the learnings from the initial phase of capacity addition that was we surpassed the targets in the 11th plan. The current challenges being faced are one, as all of you are aware, on the fuel front, and second on the reforms in the distribution sector. Whatever has happened in the past should not be allowed to repeat in the distribution reforms. Whatever FRP that is given, that should be strictly implemented in letter and spirit so that the distribution companies become financially healthy and viable.
Electricity Act 2013 has brought together laws relating to generation, transmission, distribution and trading of electricity among others. For heralding reforms in power, Ministry of Power is preparing changes to the Electricity Act 2003 and the National Tariff Policy, for which the government will be approaching the cabinet in the next couple of weeks.
Electricity Act has already 15 years have passed and 15 years. So now discussions, wide-scale discussions have already taken place in the ministry to try and see what are the issues which need to be addressed afresh. So wide-scale consultation of stakeholders has already taken place. So now it is in the final stages of being redrafted, and whatever were the inadequacies in the, it's only with passage of time that you come to realize that this thing needs to be amended and things like that. So all that exercise has already been done. So it is in the finalization, under finalization in the Ministry of Power.
As part of the amendment to the Electricity Act 2003, the ministry aims at segregating carriage and content and power distribution. Under the separate carriage and content model, one company would be owning the network, while electricity supply would be done by different entities.
The Electricity Act and the tariff policy, both are going to undergo a lot of changes. Some of them have to do with regulatory issues, but most importantly, the big change that's going to happen is on the issue of carriage and content and the separation of those two. And I think that will mark the next step in the reforms of the electricity sector.
The Power Ministry has proposed amendments to Section 11 of the Electricity Act 2003 in a serious bid to dissuade a growing tendency among states to restrict the export of power.
But unfortunately, states misuse this provision, and many of the states they started giving directions to meet their shortages of power, which was not the intent, and it was basically defeating the very purpose of the Electricity Act against the open access provision of the Act. So the proposed amendment is basically there are three things in this proposed amendment. That one is that state government can give such directions which are applicable only for 1 month at a time. Then they will have to also compensate the state GENCOs for any loss which they are incurring, and existing contracts of those GENCOs will have to be honored. So with these changes, I am sure states will not be able to misuse the way they were doing it. So it is a welcome step. Only thing is that to bring in more clarity, maybe we can include a provision that normal shortages of power will not be used as a extraordinary circumstance.
Bring the amendment, you bring the provisions in the act, but it is not implemented, so it doesn't work at all. So it remains a provision only in the books. Unfortunately, if you look at the open access today as a distribution company, when I buy power from the market, I struggle to get the open access. So I need the open access say in 100 megawatt kind of a quantity. If I don't get the open access and I am a perpetual user of the route, I am willing to pay the transmission charges, but unfortunately due to funds constraint, STUs are not able to develop. So if at national level, if at state level, this is a constraint at the consumer end, then this will be a bigger constraint actually. So we must first make our infrastructure quite solid. It's just like you have a lot of cars, but you don't have highways to travel actually, so there is no point. So you have to build generation, transmission and distribution segment simultaneously so that consumer can really get the benefit by the competition.
As part of the proposed changes to tariff policy, the ministry is also looking at extending Section 62 beyond the 12th plan period by keeping hydro projects under the section, which is a cost-plus structure. In the cost-plus structure, the electricity tariff from the plant increases if there is rise in input cost.
Ministry of Power initially had decided to set up all projects under the tariff-based bidding route to promote more competition. But subsequently they found that under the hydro it is very difficult, because in hydro, there are too many geological surprises, and because of which there is a time overrun, there is a cost overrun. It is very difficult to work out the cost and commit a tariff for that. And if you commit a tariff, then it is very difficult to factor in all these kind of changes which take place in future. Even during the operation of the plant, there are hydrological surprises, variations in the water flow. So, under the cost plus tariff, which are fixed by the regulators based on the performance regulations, hydro is more manageable under that, and I feel to promote hydro in the power sector in the country, that route is a preferred route.
A high-level advisory panel headed by Power Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia is also looking into possible amendments needed in the Electricity Act. The committee has already made various suggestions, including mechanism to pass through higher fuel costs to consumers. One of the suggestions made by the committee is to have a formula which would ensure that variation in fuel and power purchase cost is recovered by the generators. A change in the Act in this regard would help in clarifying the need for surcharge formula, which at minimum covers various costs, including mixed variants that are to be passed through to consumers in a reasonable time frame. Many power plants are facing issues related to rise in fuel cost, especially pricier overseas coal. It's time for another short break. Keep watching Power News.
Indian Energy Exchange, India's premier power trading platform.
Jal, jal, jal. Jal, jal, jal.
जल से जल तक, मेगावाटर से मेगावाट्स तक, SJVN Limited.
Power Finance Corporation, the most preferred financial institution, providing affordable and competitive products and services with efficient and internationally integrated sourcing. PFC, partnering the reforms in the Indian power sector.
Welcome back. In Company Focus segment, today we'll talk about Ravin Group. Ravin Group, established in the year 1950, is one of India's fastest growing business groups, managing diverse business interests in the power and energy sector. To talk on company's future plan and growth strategy, we have with us Mr. Vijay Karia, Chairman, Ravin Group. Good evening, Mr. Karia, and welcome to Power News.
Good evening.
Mr. Karia, after having a leadership position in cable sector, which are the new segments where Ravin has ventured in last couple of years?
Over the last few years, in the last, I think from 2005 onwards, we have been focusing on EHV installations and services, which is highly specialized. We've completed quite a few projects on the EHV side.
Mr. Karia, now tell us about the innovative products you're bringing in solar segment.
Well, one of the innovations that we have done in the solar segment, and as you know that solar is by now a very saturated market with lots of people doing the normal run-of-the-mill solar projects which are fixed installations. What we've done is we've brought in a tracker system. Basically, a tracker system is one which has panels mounted on a tracker. It can be a single axis or a dual axis tracker, and the tracker basically tracks the sun. Now, at a small increase in the capex, and mind well, this can be retrofitted onto the current installations also. At a small cost, you enhance your power generation by almost 35%, and which is a big thing in a country like India, where land, especially rooftops, etc., are scarce. So you need to maximize your outputs, and then energy costs are rising. So now maybe renewable energy in a few years' time would come at par with the utility energy costs.
Mr. Karia, off-grid solar solution could be an answer for meeting the energy need of rural areas. So why do you think it has not been able to become possible even after 65 years of independence to provide electricity to rural areas?
Yes, I think this requires a policy change, and it requires some more vision as well as some more thrust, because if you see, all utilities across all the states are supplying electricity to the agricultural sector at some concessional rates. Now, concessional rates is one thing, but one has to understand that the cost of first supplying that electricity and then billing it and then collecting the money for it means a huge administrative cost. So, rather than losing money by supplying at subsidized rates, which mind well, the subsidized rates are being subsidized by the common man only, it is being subsidized by industry, which if it is facing higher electricity tariffs have to increase the prices of their products, which are then sold into the markets out here. So, then these products cost you higher. So, ultimately the common man pays for it. So, the off-grid systems would greatly reduce the cost of supplying electricity to small villages, to the agricultural sector. Yes, so what is happening is that utilities are facing huge amount of losses by way of subsidization, and state like say Maharashtra, I believe, is facing a yearly loss of about almost 6 to 9,000 crore rupees by way of these subsidies. So, what we would like to do is that give off-grid solutions to these subsidized areas, which can enhance the reliability of power supplies to that area, as well as it can reduce costs of the other electricity users.
Mr. Karia, lastly, I'd like to ask you that what would be your strategy to reach the maximum number of consumers in rural areas?
Well, our strategy to reach out to the maximum number of people, first, we believe that technology has to be based on certain pillars. So, what we decided is that our technology has to be based on ethics, it has to be sustainable, it has to be affordable, it has to be accessible, and it has to be available. So, the first thing that we did was keep our product pricing very affordable for the common man.
Despite immense potential, the market for solar gadgets isn't very sunny in India. Lack of awareness and high cost of these products pose hurdles in the way of their acceptance. We hope Ravin's effort to make solar products affordable and accessible could be instrumental in catering the need of electricity access in rural area. Thanks, Mr. Karia, for joining us in Power News. With this, we come to an end of this episode of Power News. Keep sending us your suggestions and views at info@indianpowernews.com or call us on 011-405-60701. I'll be back next week with more news and updates. Till then, goodbye and take care.